All right, everyone, welcome to the TCP Talks Virtual Summit. And we have an amazing guest today, and that is actually Dr. Laurence Tham, all the way from Australia. It's Perth, right? Perth, Australia?
No, I actually moved to Sydney.
Oh,
I moved to
Sydney.
Sydney now, so I'm actually on the other side of the country now. I had a seaside change.
So, in the introduction, I told our listeners just a little bit about you, just kind of scratching that surface. I want to dig deeper, though. Tell our listeners more about, you as the person, but again, you as a chiropractor, but also more importantly, a leader and mentor in the profession today.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me on the summit, and I'm just excited to be part of this and really just sort of giving back to chiropractic for the world, and also loving what you're doing, and also just being able to make an influence on someone's life. And I hope that you can take something away. We're going to teach you some stuff that's going to be impactful for on Monday morning. I think that's what it's all about, and this profession needs us. And so a little bit about me. I graduated from CMCC in Toronto in 2002. I I wanted to become a physiotherapist when I was in high school. Didn't get in Toronto. I didn't have high enough marks. I think you needed like a 94, and I got a 92. But that set up for a good path for me. I studied kinesiology for, basically human kinetics at University of Waterloo for about 4 years. Dived into ergonomics, and I went to see a chiropractor. I've always wanted to become a chiropractor. I wasn't really sure. The silly things in high school, you start to think like, oh, maybe I could become a chiropractor, but then you hear stories like, oh, maybe, all that cracking, that's, in the knuckles and stuff is not good for you. So then you just kind of go off in different tangents. It's crazy what you think when you're 16, 17 years old. But I went into chiropractic because I wanted to help people. That was something that I really was passionate about, of helping, and didn't know in what realm. My mom was a foot reflexologist, so I definitely didn't want to become a medical doctor, just because it was something that my mom always instilled in me, that, there was something to, alternative medicine and stuff like that. So I went to chiropractic thinking I was going to go into sports or something, and, helping people with back pain. That's my intention when I went to CMCC. And when I went in there, I went to a couple seminars, and it just opened my eyes that what the power of chiropractic was, and what chiropractic was able to do for people. And that really changed the way I saw things. And there's, I went to school in the era, I guess, for most people would maybe be, James Chestnut was 2 years ahead of me. I had, one of my best friends were Jamie Richards from Life by Design. And we hung out together like for pretty much for about 3 years. The first year he kind of ignored me because I was kind of a bit of a nerd. But after the second year we kind of hit it off, and we really were focused on really trying to changing the world, and that's our vision. We had guys like Scott Batcher and a whole bunch of guys, Norm, who was actually part of the Chiropractic for the World Foundation. And these guys were inspiring people. And remember, we had this thing called Circle of Innate. We started this group out of 150 students in our class. We had maybe 20 of us. 10%. The 10% were going to change the world. And and then we graduated, and then we all went our separate ways. I went to Australia, and I'm still here. 12 years later, and that's sort of, I guess, my humble beginnings. And I really started to realize that when I got out of CMCC, I thought I knew it all. I thought I knew all the principles. I thought I had everything what it took to become a great chiropractor. I was so wrong. I was just so wrong. There was just so much to be learned, and it was just amazing to be able to see, and humbling too as well, to know that it took time. It almost like it was a second education. And then I was an associate for 2.5 years, and then became bought a practice, and practicing for the last 8-9 years in this practice, and then I just found this other passion. So I'll speed up quickly just to kind of get to, I know this is just the intro, but basically I recognized that I remember DeMartini saying this once, and he said he was able to help people one-on-one as a chiropractor. You can only do so much. And so, I saw that. I saw there was a cap and a limit of where I wanted to be. I reached my goals like within 2.5 years of what I was going to see for my lifetime. I thought, what are we going to do? How are we going to change this? And I got a little bit bored, and I thought, I want to help more people. And one of the ways was to kind of the thing with podcasts really started.
Yeah.
So I started something called the Wellness Guide, which is like a podcast that we've been doing it for about 3.5 years now, and really trying to educate the world on health and education and wellness, but using chiropractic principles, underneath, but without saying that we're chiropractors, because, I know people might judge me on that and they'll say, oh, why don't you talk about chiropractic? You should stand up for it. I get it. But the public believes, like, if you say you're a chiropractor, they already positioned you into a particular hole, into a particular basket. And their minds already have chiropractic in that box already. And so every time you say chiropractic, they already put you in that box. And so what we wanted to do is to reach the masses, talk about chiropractic principles, but without having that, being stuck in a box. And so that's why we actually decided to, focus on wellness, which is what people want to hear. But then, using three of us who are all chiropractors to kind of utilizing all the philosophies and principle underneath the whole thing, to kind of teach it, almost like underneath, under the radar type of a way. And we've been really successful. Luckily within 4.5 months we were #1 in Australia, and we're still one of the top health podcasts in the world. We get about 12,000 downloads per week. And then we started, something called the Wellness Couch. You can check it out, wellnesscouch.com, which is basically now, like, I think over 12, 14 shows now. We're probably by the end of a couple months, that we're basically like a radio station for health and wellness. Now, we get guys, talk about relationships. We talk about, I do something called Inside the Champion's Mind, and which is just on mindset. We got exercise, and we got, whatever. We got whatever shows that's out there. Vitality Hackers, which is hacking vitality. So a whole bunch of things that's going on there, and we're reaching more and more people. So we're reached over 1 million people a year, and so we're trying to double that, and we're really trying to make a big impact. So that's sort of where I started, and I do other podcasts like My Practice Rules with Jamie now, and then I started my coaching program to mentor, because I really wanted to really help young chiropractors and chiropractors who have been 20 years out to upgrade their thinking and upgrade their practice, because we are falling behind, because we can't be doing the same thing over and over again. And this is where I created something called Drive Your Practice, simply because I believe that what's out there right now is 10, 20, 30 years old, and we're still doing it. And we need to take an upgrade into our knowledge, and in terms of practicing and the way we need to touch the lives of people, we need to talk and speak a different language.
I love what you're saying here too, because, I'm teaching chiropractors currently to podcast, to broadcast their voice. And I often have these questions, and I love again, like, even if you take the title of my podcast, The Chiropractic Philanthropist, just from the title, I disqualify a bunch of people from ever listening, right? I mean, you define your niche that way. So yeah, it's so amazing what you've done with all of these different, starting with one podcast to broadcast your voice, and then actually, grew it from there. And you're affecting, because you're doing that, you're affecting probably millions of people's, lives when they hear your voice. It's so powerful. I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much. And it's humbling. Like, you and I both know, like, when we do a podcast, we just think, is actually anybody listening to us, or is it just me talking to more to our friends and recording? And then all of a sudden, I know we get stats and stuff, but I don't really look at stats. I just kind of just do it for the hobby. I didn't, for me. And, when I get emails from people from England or from Canada or from wherever saying that, this is the best show. This is for across the shows. Like, I do Inside Champions Mind. I just do that show for fun, and there's nothing there's no products or behind it or anything. And people say their lives have changed because of what I say or whatever. And it's amazing, and to hear that you're actually making a difference in someone's life. They're changing careers, or they're doing something. This is for general public too, right? So it's humbling, and it's also, wow, it's just saying it's fire and fuel to kind of keep going and doing what you're doing, just because. And here's the thing. I love that you're helping other chiropractors doing podcasts, because I believe, and I truly believe this, that all of us have geniuses. We all have that 1% genius that really needs to be shown to the world. And I think that if you don't show that your true genius to the world, that ends up happening is that two people lose out. One, you lose out, and two, the world loses out, because they never see who you truly are. I mean, you think about if we never saw Martin Luther King's genius, then things wouldn't have changed. Maybe from someone else. But if we didn't see Babe Ruth doing his genius, he wouldn't been able to. We wouldn't have admired who he was, or maybe Jimi Hendrix, or it could be Tom Brady for the New England Patriot fans, or whoever. You know what I mean? The thing is that I think all of us have a genius within us. It's our responsibility in our life to show it and display it proudly, because someone will benefit from it, and they will take that genius and your genius and what you display to the world, and then elevate it to another level in their life.
And I think this is completely relevant to our discussion today, which is, the 2XP effect, which is, taking those fresh, new, innovative marketing ideas and those tools and putting them in the hands of doctors. I got to tell you, I mean, with our podcast training, we have about 30 doctors on board, and we have just a couple that are just starting to graduate. And I have never seen doctors get so excited about anything in my life. They'll send me pictures of them when they get their equipment with their microphone, and we're bouncing names back and forth for their podcast. It really feeds the expression, their true, unique expression and their message. And I can't tell you what that sort of passion, it's got to help their practice grow when they get, again, and I love what you're talking about, broadcasting that message. So I want to get to your true expertise, what you're going to bring to doctors today. And we're going to talk about the 2XP effect. So can you expand a little bit and just give us a little overview on that first?
Yeah, so, I've been a big proponent of 10xing anything, right? So giving 10 times the value of what you do. I mean, as a chiropractor, if someone paying you a certain amount of money, say, we'll just make a general statement, just say $50 per adjustment, it's not the $50, right? It's not about the money. It's about how can you give 10 times, $500 worth of value, okay, to that person, because money is just an exchange of values, period. It's not about, we think of it as like, some people just have this thing about money. Money is just a value exchange of what we do and what they're providing for you. If you go to a grocery store, you're buying, whatever you're buying in the grocery store, they're giving you exchange for the, the organic food that they actually were able to get supplied from the farmers. And the farmers spent that time, putting the seeds in to kind of grow that and water it and all that stuff, and the energy to create that, and getting up early in the morning to harvest out the vegetable. See, all of that, that's what you're exchanging money for. And so when someone gives you money in practice, is that they're exchanging not just the adjustment. I mean, adjustment is so powerful enough. We get that, but it's also your expertise, your daily commitment to make it happen, to provide the space for them to even have a table and a room for them to adjust. They're providing the staff, that you actually supply. So we just got to get that clear in our head. The money that you're receiving is just an exchange of the values that you're trying to convey. And for me, it's always trying to minimum have a 10x effect. Someone gives me some money, I want to give a 10 times effect. Well, the thing is though, if we're going to reach 10x, and I know that's one of your thing too on this podcast, the summit is to 10x people's lives and 10x their practices. Well, in order to reach 10x, we kind of have to do the first step, which is 2x. Like that's the problem is that most people think 10x is so far away they can't even fathom that, and it might be too far reach. Well, I say that I don't think it's that far. I think if you look back 10, 15 years ago, there's no way you'll be earning the same amount of money. I hope not, that the same amount of money you're earning now than you did 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago, right? I was a student, I was poor, I was in debt, you definitely 10x that effect. So the thing is that what you want to do is I think in practice, you want to have a 2x effect first to kind of get going, to get you going, to realize that you can do this. So what does 2xp mean? Well, 2xp means, it's doubling your practice. It's doubling your profit and doubling your passion for chiropractic. I think if you can do that, you can actually create a massive effect for you. So I look at this and go, there's any business. I don't care if you're a chiropractic business. I don't care if you're a medical doctor. I don't care if you're a dentist. I don't care if you're Apple. You have really only 3 ways to create growth in any business. And the 3 ways are, I learned this from a guy named Jay Abraham, 15 years ago, and it's stuck in my head. 3 ways is really increasing the number of new clients that uses your product. 2 is increasing the number of frequency that client buys from you or utilizes you. And 3 is the amount of getting more dollar per transaction. And that's really it. Profit is really about increasing those three things. And that's all you do. Now, if you want to talk about profit, yes, there's one more way, which is decreasing your expenses, right? Yeah. But really for growth, those are the only three ways. There's no other way to grow your business or your profit or your practice. You focus on those three things. I mean, it's not as hard as it sounds, right? That's it. Three things. Now, how do you do that? Well, I believe there's three focus areas, three profit centers that you need to constantly look at. And it's not one thing more than another. One of the three areas is this. Number one, first, it starts with product. You got to freaking believe in your product. You got to love your product. You got to believe in it. There's got to be some uniqueness about your product. You got to be able to scale that product, and you got to be able to wholeheartedly utilize that product for it with great intention to apply it to your practice. Well, for us, it's our hands, it's our ability, it's our knowledge, it's our philosophies, our principles on chiropractic. That's purely, obviously what we have to do. Second thing is you have to have processes. Process is what is going to drive any practice. You got to have processes in a way you attract clients into your practice. You got to have processes to be able to convert clients from prospects to clients. And the third thing is you have to have processes to deliver on what you promise. If you don't have process to, deliver on the results that you promise them, then your practice is going to fail. The third part is people. You got to have the right people on the bus to drive this practice. People starts with, your staff. And this also starts with you, but also it starts with the clients that you choose. You might as well choose clients that you actually have fun with, that are, that you love to be with, rather than someone who you're struggling with. And I get sometimes, we when we start out, we just want anybody, and I get that. I think it's important that you get the people right first, and that includes you, your staff, and the clients that you see.
I've definitely had that experience in practice where I'd have, like it's just a super rocking day. We had an open adjusting, and I would see one of those people that you're kind of describing, that just was not a fit for my office or my type of chiropractic, possibly you could say. And they would walk in and it would almost be like a deflation of like, okay, prepare, I can do this. And it was never really a good feeling. And I can sense, I can tell exactly what you're talking about, because honestly, they probably just weren't a great fit for me, for my office.
And I think what ends up happening is that it's a mindset thing, right? The mindset thing is that we as chiropractors, oftentimes, especially when we're struggling or when we're in survival mode, is that we see the clients as the prize. Is that like we'll do everything for them. And so when you do your report of findings or you do your initial consultation, you're trying to get the prize, right? Wrong. You need to be the prize. You as the chiropractor is the prize. They're trying to get you to work with them. And it's such a simple mindset shift. And if you see that shift, all of a sudden now, your conversation, your tone, your ability to speak, it completely changes the thing. And, I can tell you this, I just spent the weekend on a 2-day, doing 2 days speaking on this 2XP thing. And I got to tell you, I've done this exercise for hundreds of chiropractors now. And I get them to kind of figure out exactly what their capacities are. And I look at it, and I'm happy to share this with you, for your listeners. But there's an exercise that I take them through, and what they find out on this simple exercise is they look at how many hours they actually work, and figure out how many, take out your initial consultations, and you take out your report of findings, and then we figure out, the percentages. And guess what happens? You start to figure out that you are working way under your capacity. And most people, right? I've done this a lot. There's certain people that are working, high capacities, but most people are working less than 50% capacities of what they're capable of seeing if they just were full on, working, day in, day out, and minute by minute working percent. And if they're working under, like some of them are like 30, 40 most of the time, if you're working 30 to 40% capacity, what the hell are you doing with the rest of the time, right? I'm not questioning it, but I'm just saying, don't tell me you're busy, and don't tell me you can't spend some time watching these videos and applying some of the principles because, you're too busy on Facebook or whatever, because I guarantee you're wasting 60% of your time. What are you doing with that time? Because you may as well use that time, leverage it. And that's what successful people do when, successful chiropractors, is that if they're not busy, use that time wisely to actually focus on building your business. And when you can do that over and over again, and you continue to fill your mind with amazing information and start applying. That's the most important thing. It doesn't really matter about how much information or how many times you listen to these things. You actually got to take the steps and implement whatever people are telling you to do, because the faster you implement, the faster you're going to get results. And also too, to figure out that this doesn't work or this works, and then start to tweak it to make it work.
Definitely in practice, what I had a similar strategy that a mentor had taught to me. And yeah, when I found that there was time in my day that was not being utilized properly, I just actually condensed my practice hours. So it was rocking busy. And you know what happened? I actually grew even more. So I got busier because people would come in and they'd be like, man, it's like we're rocking in here. I got to refer my friends. This is awesome. And
yeah, you can create that energy in that practice, right? Which attracts more people.
Absolutely. And then what I did is then I started to grow my hours or expand them if I had to. If only when I found that it was becoming inconvenient for people to come in. So when I say inconvenient, because we had really tight systems, was just when I would look at the queue to see how many people were waiting to be adjusted, or in that time frame. And if it was anywhere like 10 minutes, then I was like, okay, we need to expand some hours here. But I love that. That's awesome, because I'll bet 90% of doctors viewing this today have not done that work.
Yeah, it's incredible. They and this is what happens is that when people have, every doc sort of knows where they're at, right? And then they know where they want to go, but they don't even know what that capacity could be. So when you do this exercise, you start to realize, going, wait a second, that is actually a small goal. It's like that, this is only 50% of what your goal. Or it might be, there's another doc that I was talking to. When we did the calculation, he was already at not like 80, 90% capacity, but his goal was out here. And we said, well, that's not going to happen. Like, you can't do it because you don't have the time. So something's got to change. So either one, you increase the amount of hours you work, right? Which is not something you wanted to do. Two, you work a little faster. And then when we looked at that, it goes, yeah, you're definitely underperforming in terms of speed. How can we compress time, work a little faster, remove some of the things that you're actually doing? And simple things like we eliminated, I'll tell you, it's so stupid, right? It's so small, and you would think like it's like, how can you do this? But this guy, just before I tell you what we did, this guy went from when we did this, I spent 60 minutes talking to him. We figured out exactly what was happening, and I got him to do, two things. One of them, right? I'll just tell you in a second. What it did, it created his practice within 4 weeks, grew his practice by 44%.
Oh my gosh.
44%. It was huge. And we just this one thing. No, are you ready for the one thing? When the patient or the client walks in the door, there's a sign. And the CA tells the sign, go read the sign, and goes, please take the stuff out of your pocket and put it in this beautiful box that we have for you, and lie face down and take 10 deep breaths so that when the doc comes in, they're ready for you and you can be relaxed for your adjustment. That was it. Like, that's it, right? That was one of those two things that we did. And it honestly shaved. Like, I mean, you think about how many, especially for guys, right? They take out the keys and the wallet and the whatever crap that's in our pocket, where at least the female practice members at least have a purse, right? They take their stuff out. That's like shaving off a minute or 2 minutes off their time. And they're relaxed. And guess what? They're better receiving for the adjustment. And it was huge, because so you got to recognize, like, are you at close to capacity or you're not close to capacity? You just got to decide, because that will give you an idea of what you need to work on. Because even if you're full, you might think, oh, I'm doing great, fantastic. Well, how can you be better? Because how can you serve more? That's what I would be asking.
And this is also very technique specific as well. Like, I mean, I had, at one point, I was actually doing pre and post posture checks for every adjustment. And I was still seeing, maybe 300 or 400 a week, patients a week. So it was busy though. And yeah, I mean, I just at one point I go, you know what, this is silly. I'm just going to check post. I'm going to check posture post. That's it.
Yeah.
Because it's incremental and change. So, and honestly, you know what, with the posture check at the end, it was really just a nice way to connect with people. It took like an extra 30 seconds, but yeah, then it actually freed up that time. So I didn't have to expand my hours. And actually people really enjoyed that. I like what you're saying here too, because when you came to them to actually to the table to connect with them, they were relaxed. They were prepared for their adjustment. It helped take gravity off their spine, I used to say.
Yeah, and it takes away the conversation that, because they, you know what I mean? It takes the conversation of like, hey, how are you? All the little chit chats. And I have no problems with small chit chats. It's about connection. But you because when you walk in the room, they're already lying face down. They don't see you. You get to guide the conversation rather than them guiding you. And then we have a chat. And then there's like that whole minute, 2 minutes before they even lie down. And, I think it's important to actually create that conversation before it even starts.
I love this. And I guess if we're going back to this thread that we're speaking about too, and it is technique specific, I mean, would the other way be then? So if someone, based on technique, it's a 5-minute adjustment and you want to free up some of that time, would you just increase your fee based on the amount of time you spend with patients?
Yeah, technique specific is really different, and you got to value what your time is, and you also got to value what your adjustment is. And we talked about the 3 things you can increase. You can talk about increasing your new patients, and we can talk, which everybody focuses on, right? Everybody wants more new patient, but you know what? I don't think that's the first thing you need to fix. To be honest with you, the first thing most people need to fix is they got to learn to convert better. They need to learn to communicate that message better, and most of the time, that's where we fail. We fail in our ways we communicate. We fail in the way we tell the story. We fail the way we tell clients about the bigger picture, because most people, and anyway, people that I come across, is that they're focusing on the progress exam, which is like 12 visits or whatever it is, and that's what they focus on. That's what they get them to focus on, and it's about you got to get them to focus on a way bigger vision, a bigger vision than themselves, and then be able to communicate backwards that these are the steps to get there. And so one of the key steps of the reported findings we talk about is how to expand the gap or bridge, expand the bridge. Because if you can create a bridge from where they currently are to where they should be or where they could be a year from now, then all of a sudden now you stretch their thinking, and then you just got to fill in the gap. The process is whatever you tell it to be. If you might be a wellness practitioner and go, well, the process is adjustment first. But in that process, we're going to be teaching you how we have these, food modules that we're going to be teaching you. And then there's going to be exercise modules that we're going to be teaching you. And then, you have thinking modules, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what you fill in the gap with, obviously depending on your technique and your expertise. But the thing is, it's about being able to stretch someone from, instead of here to here, it's about stretching from here to there. It's about stretching your limits and how far you can actually take them.
And again, we can circle back here to what you're saying is really just providing more than what their expectation is. And so adding those extra modules, those, advanced seminars, I used to call them, was, on nutrition or on movement or, mindset. People saw that as added value when they came in, especially if they were a new practice member. And, I just want to also circle back to frequency, because, when I was early in practice, because that was one of the other things that you had mentioned, is increasing the amount of frequency that you actually see that person. When I was very good when it came to the intensive portion of care. And I got to tell you, I mean, maybe all the viewers here aren't exactly working the same way that I worked. But, then when it came to actually moving them into that wellness care model, I wasn't probably giving them, I was giving them or providing with them the care that I thought they would accept versus what I thought they needed.
So a couple of things that I want to be clear on is that everything when we talk about frequency, we're talking about frequency based on things that's, it's got to be done out of integrity, right? It's not just about basing a frequency just because we want to sell you more, but it's not about trying to just even frequency at the beginning. The frequency means this: if a client comes in and sees you more often in their lifetime, we're talking about lifetime, that means that they have got the picture, they actually get the big idea, and they're going to stay with you for over a lifetime, right? That's what we're trying to aim for. So it's about frequency, not necessarily intensity at the beginning, but it's a frequency overall in their lifetime. So rather than someone just coming in for 12 visits and never see you again, we're talking about trying to get someone to stay with you a lifetime and continue to see. So it's like really about their patient visit average. It's about how do we increase that they actually continue to stay and continue to be part of the practice. Because when they stay, guess what? You don't have to go spend so much time recruiting new clients. So let's take this out of context of chiropractic, because it's a little bit easier because people get uncomfortable with this, right? If I was Apple, right, and Apple is a perfect example, one of the most successful companies out there in the world, who has way more cash than anybody else, and they have way more cash than some countries, right? So Apple, right, when I first bought my first I think it was an iMac I bought in 2007, right? I was a new customer. My wife had to convince me to buy a Mac. and she saw this commercial and she thought it was cool. So I was a new client, okay? So that's obviously a new client. Now, Apple, what do? Do they just sell me one product and hope for that's it? No, they create such an amazing product going, holy crap, this is amazing. I need to go get an iPod now. And then from the iPod, it goes, no, you don't just have the iPod, you have an iPhone. But then every freaking year, they come up with a new version. So we went from iPhone 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, right? So out of that, I already have 4 phones, right? And because it's so good, it's not just for me, right? I have to buy one for my wife, right? So that means there's, probably 7 phones there. Plus the iMac, I was like, oh, it's so good. I got to get the 27-inch now, right? And then it goes, oh, but I got to have a laptop. So let's buy the MacBook Pro. But I got to go lighter because I travel so much. So then I go with the Air. And then there's iPad. Who knew that we needed an iPad? So look at it, how just from that one transaction in 2007, it's embarrassing to say how many Mac products I actually have, right? But over that lifetime, they've increased my frequency, right, of purchase. Right. So do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
They've basically taken, now also too, dollars per transaction that I'm making, am I spending more? Yep. Yeah. Because I'm buying more and more expensive products, right? And so Mac they're not just trying to sell you one thing. They're trying to sell you a product. And how do they do that? Well, their product is so good. They believe that they package it in such a way that you put trust in them, that you're going to want to continue to stay there. Because once you buy one product, you want to buy other products that Mac delivers, because if that's good, the other product must be good. And then you kind of tie everything in. And for most of you and you know who you are, people who are Mac, once you go Mac, you don't go back, right? Because that's exactly because they hook us in because their products are so good. You don't want to take a chance on anything else. And is that what they call it, in the industry, it's called the lock-in effect, right? Basically, they lock you in. They have a new system, software program that's different than the Microsoft program. And pretty much once you learn it, you don't want to go change, right? It's no different than Microsoft. I used to be a PC user and didn't want to change. But once I learned it, I don't want to go back to that. I haven't touched an XP I didn't even know it's called XP anymore. I haven't touched Windows since XP days. That's probably what happened. Absolutely. So I hope that makes sense. That translates back to us, is that if we can, tell our story better, if we can create a product that's unique, and you can create, and this is your practice, the adjustment, if you can create an experience, that's the key. If you can deliver experience better than they imagined, then all of a sudden they're going to want to stay. And more importantly, they're going to want to refer people, because they go, you got to check this guy out because their practice does this. I've never seen that before. Why don't we do that? We do that. We love to go to different restaurants. We love to go to different hotels. And these hotels, I'm sure all of you, I've asked you this, listeners, all of you go, what's your favorite hotel? What's the best restaurant you ever been to? You'll always be able to say one or two things. You go, yeah, that was the one. And the question I ask, why? And then guaranteed, everyone would say it was not because it was the cheapest, right? You would say that because it was phenomenal. The sheets, there was the thread count was like 5,000, or the chef was, the food was it was just melted in your mouth. And it was the experience, right? The whole entire experience, the visual experience, the auditory experience, and the kinesthetic experience. All three had to work together. And then when that happens, you just has this memory, and you go around telling people about this, even though you don't get paid for it. Well, what if you did that to your practice? What if you had visual stimulation to the eyes of your client, you had auditory stimulation, and you also had that kinesthetic feeling that people feel like this is an amazing place, and they're going to go and tell other people. That's the experience that you want to create in your practice.
And that's just building that loyalty too. Those are those people who are with you for 20, 25 years.
That's right. That's right. You got to deliver. You got to keep delivering, right? If you don't deliver on what you promise, guess what? They're going to leave. It's good. We end up being a commodity. So stop being a commodity, right? We can't be commodities, because commodities, you're just basing on price. People are just going to shop around trying to figure out, are you the cheapest chiropractor in town? You don't want to be the cheapest chiropractor. You want to be the most expensive, right? The thing is that if we trade on commodity, that's going to be a problem. If we trade on it as a product, then we're going to trade on, the features, the benefits of it. I think we need to trade. Then you go, service is the next level. Then we just trade on the features. Well, guess what? I think there's one more level above that. It's experience. That's when we trade on value. How much value is this person giving me compared to another person?
How it makes you feel. the service, right? Doesn't it? It comes back to that. It's experience and feelings, right? And emotion. That's something that Apple's been very good too. Even with their advertising, they almost can create a feeling with their advertising and marketing.
Yeah, that's right. And if the thing is that if you create an experience and an experience that I wanted to create an experience that they're part of family.
Yeah.
So when you come to my practice, I'll take care of you like family. You're no different than my brother and sister. And if you are like my brother and sister, and when I take care of you, and so when you can create it, they will forgive you. Right? They will forgive you. It's like, look, you see in the background, I'm a 49ers fan, right? So, and I'm a certain baseball fan, but 49ers is my team for football. Can they be disappointing? Yes. We haven't won a Super Bowl in freaking how long, and we came so close, but you're faithful to them. Whatever team, because you forgive them, every year when your team doesn't make it to the Super Bowl or whatever, they won't win, you forgive them because you're part of that. You want people to be faithful to you, to be part of your tribe, and that they will forgive you even when you sort of mess up just a little bit. And I think friends and family will forgive you. If you just make transactions and you become a commodity, they won't forgive you. They'll move on and they're next. And the worst thing that will happen, the worst thing has happened, not that they won't come back to you. The worst thing that will happen is they never touch chiropractic again. They never come back to chiropractic. And that's what bothers me the most.
So if we circle back here and just talk about, what is the very first step that we should advise docs to do? Would it be would you call it that productivity exercise?
First exercise, yeah. I think one of the first is to kind of do this productivity exercise. The productivity exercise does this. It's a capacity exercise.
Capacity.
And what it does is to figure out exactly what your capacity is and where you're at. And you know what? I even do one more extra calculation I'm adding to it, is that how much money are you leaving on the table? Okay. So that really now forces you to kind of go, let's just say you waste 60% of your time, and 60% times, the number of, how much, whatever you charge, how many clients you could have seen, multiply that by how much you charge. That's how much money you're missing. Or at least I figured that down to the hour, that's how much you're paying yourself to sit there to do Facebook, basically. And it's humbling to know that it's $500, $600 per hour you're paying yourself doing nothing. So I think when you start to see that, you start to realize there's so much more you could be doing with your time.
That's crazy. And so is there is this an exercise that doctors can do on their own, or do they need your guidance for that?
No. You can do it on your own. Listen, there's a worksheet, and it's usually only exclusive for my clients personally. But I'm happy to give that to you and share with you. You can do it on your own, either I'll give that to you, or I'll post it online, and I'm sure you edit this video, and we'll just put the link on this, and then they can just do that. Okay,
absolutely.
I promise I'll give that to you. So you can do it on your own. You can just follow it step by step. And you know what? Maybe I'll do a quick video on exactly how to do that, so that you're clear on how to do that too.
Hey, that would be so helpful, and I'll attach that video I'll embed it right underneath this one. And also, and if docs have any questions, then they can email or connect with you then too. That would be perfect. And that's really the whole theme of this virtual summit, is really giving those tips and strategies that are very practical, that docs can actually put into play and start to up their game in 2015. So, before we kind of wrap things up, I always like to ask docs who come on the summit, because they're so busy and they have so much going on in life. Family, they have success in leaders and mentors. Some are still in rock and practice. What does a day in the life of Laurence Tham look like? How do you do that?
We're wrapping up. We're just getting started. Day in the life of me. Listen, one of the things is that I recognize, for me, I get up with my kids. I got, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So they get me up, and we start the day by just having breakfast and getting them ready for school and all that. So really, I think it's important. I'll share you what I guess the key secret for me. The one thing that I do consistently, I have been doing this since my first year in CMCC. This is going back 1999. So I've been doing this for quite some time now, so probably close to 16 years. One thing that I have never stopped, and this is pre-iPhones, this is pre-iPod, this is going back to cassette tapes, right? So I've had these I think it's really important to be able to set your mind. So I think of, you think of your life as your mind is sort of like a garden. And if there's any gardeners out there, one of the key things is it's important is that you obviously give, you have great soil and you gotta, pour water into, give water to the flowers and stuff. But one of the things that's constant, you have to weed. You have to take out the weed. You have to get out. You have to go do some weeding. And the thing is, what weeding is think of weeds as the negative thoughts that goes on in your head. That all the thoughts that that say you're not good enough and so on and so forth. And I think what you have to do is reprogram your brain, like literally rewire your brain yourself. And you can't expect the world's going to rewire it for you, because they'll wire it for fear. They're wired for that you should be afraid of, someone's going to die, you're going to die, that type of thing. So what I've done is that I constantly, no matter if I'm walking the dog, I'm washing dishes, if my wife is not around, if I'm doing things myself, I'll constantly have these earbuds in my ear, listening to your podcast, or other people's podcasts, or information, products that I bought, to just fill my brain with information constantly, just fill it and fill it. And so what I love to be able to do, it's what I do best. I think, we all have our genius. My genius is to be able to take all those ideas and I simplify them, simplify them for people. But for you, everybody should be listening to things. There's no excuse anymore. Like, there's no excuse anymore. Like, going back 15, 16 years, you had to buy those things, right? You had to buy those tapes. I remember students, you had to go, I remember going to like, DE and sitting in the front and recording, right? We had to sit there and record these speakers because it was just like amazing. You just sit there with it was a Walkman, right? It was a Walkman recorder. Like, that's what it was. And you sit there and you listen and I bought, when I first came to Australia, I bought all these tapes with me, these cassette tapes. And some of you probably don't even know what cassette tapes are, but I bought a car, right? My first 2 cars here in Australia, and this is going back 2002, and I bought a second car was like 2004 or 5. Both cars had cassette tape players. I did it for that reason only, because they had a cassette tape player.
Yeah.
And I can listen to this stuff going to and from work. Nowadays, everything could be done on an iPhone, and you store it there. And there's no excuse anymore, because with podcasts exploding, there's no excuse that I can't afford this. It's free. Like, go download My Practice Rule and go listen to My Practice Rule over and over again. I've listened to things. I've listened to, DeMartini and the Dick Santos and, the Sigafus. And I've listened to so many times I can probably do their talk for them, it's about ingraining and rewiring that brain by installing all this amazing information. It's wealth of knowledge is out there. It's free. Download this MP3, go listen to, the Summit stuff and grab as many as you can and just listen to it. It's so cheap. And all of it's going to Chiropractic for the World. I think you're doing, a massive favor to Chiropractic for the World. But more importantly, you download your brain and you actually get to help someone and, in your practice and be able to grow your practice, and you make a bigger impact in your community and do something for chiropractic. And I think that's one of the rituals that I would suggest highly for anybody. There's a quote that I recently heard is that basically says, spectacular achievements is always preceded by unspectacular preparation, by Robert Schuller. And the thing is that those people who are successful, they didn't become successful because of, they weren't one-hit wonders. They didn't just become successful, all of a sudden. They were successful because of all the unspectacular preparation that they've done over and over again. And Denzel Washington says, luck is where opportunity meets preparation. And preparation is what's key. You're preparing your mind when you become a chiropractor. You're preparing yourself as you go into the practice and start adjusting and turning the power on. And you got to do all the little work that needs to be done. And year in, year out, guess what? Something's going to happen. Something's going to switch on, and you go, you know what? I'm here for a bigger purpose. And that's when you can create a massive practice for yourself. But more importantly, you make a massive impact for the community.
I love this. I'm just going to pull a little bit from what you're saying here too, and ask you one question here. And that is that, you meet with chiropractors, you speak to, docs all over the world and mentor the hundreds of docs. What would you say is the one thing that holds most of them back from success?
Yeah. Okay. The one thing.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that holds them back is you. I think it's not you yourself. I just want to say it's themselves. It's themselves. They hold themselves back because of the stories they tell themselves. Okay, so let me explain. I hope we have time for this.
Yeah.
But basically, it's we all have our stories, right? I have my stories, but those stories are either consciously or unconsciously written by someone else. It's usually written by, the experience that we had. And, just say we had a bad experience when we were in childhood or whatever. And whatever connection or story you decide to write for yourself and go, wait a second, this means, well, because I didn't make the high school team, right? I'm not good enough. Like, that's a story, right? But who said that? No one did. You did. And you made that story. If Michael Jordan, right, who didn't make his high school basketball team, said to himself, I'm not good enough. I shouldn't do this. We would have lost out on magnificence. Like, we would not have known who Michael Jordan was, and he would just been a nobody. And the stories we tell ourselves can be either empowering or disempowering. The goal here is to be able to be aware of what disempowering stories you have in your life, and how can you rewrite them for the better? How can you change that story that will empower you rather than disempowering you? And when you start to write a better story, guess what happens? You take action and you implement, and be okay with failure. I failed a freaking numbers of times, many times in my life, and it's still a young life. And the thing is that if you can learn to live with failure and move onward from failure, you're going to be able to be okay to try different things. And the one thing across the board from all successful people, I believe, is this thing called the speed of implementation.
Yes.
The faster you take this information and immediately, not tomorrow, not Tuesday, not next week, but immediately apply it to your life. And I've given you several things that you can immediately do as of now. Right now, today, as soon as you get off this call, or as soon as you start watching this video, to implement right away. And once you implement it, guess what happens? You start to get feedback. The feedback could be good or bad. It doesn't matter. It's that it tells you that this is the right path or not the right path, but at least gives you give you something to adapt, right? If you learn something from all these speakers here, take one thing and apply it immediately, and then see how it works. And then when the feedback comes in, you need to adapt to that. Isn't that what we talk about as chiropractors? Don't we tell people that, that the body is self-healing? Do we not talk about that the body is self-healing because it self-adapts? Well, you're adapting. Go out and adapt. Go out and fail and try things and do something different that you've never done before. I try to do every year is to try to do something, that's something that scares me. Every year I just do something big that scares the living daylight to me. Last year I was in Toronto. First time back in Toronto in a very, very long time. I went up top in the CN Tower and just walked on the top there. You can actually, yeah. Because I did the one in New Zealand and I go, but yeah, that wasn't high enough. I know there's a bigger tower. So CN Tower is like out there, leaning out there and with nothing except for this thing that's holding you back and just leaning across over the Sky Dome, or Rogers Stadium or whatever it's called now. And that's freaking scary. I'm not a big fan of heights. But it's about challenging yourself to do something crazy, because when you start to do that, you stretch yourself, and that's how you do it. And I think that's the one thing that stops people. Yeah. There's many things that stop people. Like, we can get into entitlement, we can talk about hard work, all those things. But I think the one thing is the stories that we tell ourselves, and the stories that we tell ourselves, that has to be empowering rather than disempowering.
I got to tell you, and this is really coming back to what you're talking about with action and implementation, is the difference between success and failure, is that we can talk, you and I could sit here and drop bombs, knowledge bombs on docs all day. But if they don't do anything with it, you know what I mean? Like, if they don't take that action, then nothing is going to happen. And whether, I like what you're saying, whether, you fail or you have success, there's going to be learning from that regardless. This whole summit process for me, I've never done a summit before.
Yeah, I'm sure you're learning fast, right? Learning hard and fast.
There's a lot.
The thing is that some people, I've coached a lot of people and mentored a lot of people, and one of the craziest things is that we're inherently lazy. Okay, let's face it, we're all inherently lazy. That we don't want to do the work, and some people are really driven, and that's fantastic. But they had to train themselves to do that. But a lot of chiropractors are just not willing to do the work. And the thing is that if you're not willing to do the work, then you got to figure some way to hack it. Some way to basically, go to a coaching program. That doesn't have to be mine. Just go find someone that you gravitate to, and guess what? Get them to tell you what to do day in, day out. I don't like working out, period. I just don't. I don't really necessarily enjoy. I love the effect of the workout afterwards, but I don't personally like going to a gym and figuring out what I have to do. So how do I hack that? Well, I hire a personal trainer to tell me and abuse me, to tell me, go do this push-up, go hang, go do this. And they tell me what to do because then I don't have to think. And then, I can only blame them, right? But I paid them to do that to me. And because I needed someone to tell me what to do. Well, listen, all of us need a personal trainer sometime. And I think it's important. If you know that you don't have the guts or the attitude or whatever to do it and have the longevity, that's the key, right? Continually doing it, then hire someone, hire a friend, go on, Fiverr or someone to tell you to do the steps you need to do, whatever it takes. I've hacked it away where, I hate doing to-do lists, for example. I hate doing to-do lists, but I know it's important, and I'll forget about them. So what I do is that I hire my staff, like my personal assistant. We have a conversation every single week, and we set the agenda for next week. And on Monday morning, she sends me an email and goes, by the way, Lawrence, this is what you agreed to doing this week. And I'm like, damn it. And then on Wednesday, she sends me another email to go, by the way, how are you doing? It's halfway now. How far have you gone? Right? It's like a reminder because I'm going to forget. So guess what? I don't need, iCalendar to tell me. I need someone to kind of go push you into buttons and go. And I gave her permission that no matter how much I resist, it's your responsibility to tell me when I'm not doing things. And so that's her responsibility. And that's one of her things to do. I set the parameters and my rules around me to make my life work.
Accountability. And that's an amazing, bomb just to maybe kind of wrap up the summit today. And I got to tell you, there's docs out there right now that are viewing or listening that are feeling that pull to connect with you. How can they find you?
Listen, you can connect with me in many ways. I think on a daily basis or a weekly basis, you can listen to My Practice Rules. Go to mypracticerules.com. We're upgrading the website, but go sign in there. I think that's a great point to start if you're just focusing on practice. If you want to just listen to what I'm doing in terms of the podcast, different type of podcasts, My Practice Rules is a fantastic podcast just on chiropractic. But I have to the Wellness Guys. You go to thewellnesscouch.com. I think another one for if you're want to rewrite the story. I think Inside Champions Mind podcast is a fantastic podcast you listen to. I think that's really, really cool. The Wellness Guys is just great information that you can take that you can actually help and talk to your clients regards to health and wellness. If you really want to get some coaching and just want to connect with me somehow, go to driveyourpractice.com. Driveyourpractice.com. Put in your email there. There's a couple of videos that I do. I usually do some video blogs. You can watch some videos there. But sign up for some video stuff. There's a Practice Like a Pro. I think that's right now video series you can get access to. I teach you some stuff through there. But I'm releasing, if you're starting out, if you want to go from 0 to 100, just to kind of get started, I have a program there to help you getting started called Ignition and Turbo. That would be a first part of protocol. If you are a chiropractor who's probably sitting more above the 100 plus mark and who just really wants to stabilize their practice and have some accountability to actually know how to take it to the next level, well, let's let's have a chat. I think the best thing is actually have a chat. And so, I do a group that, I basically have a coaching group that I continually to connect with on a weekly basis. We have this 2XP thing that we actually now doing every single week. There's certain things you need to do and implement systems to implement in your practice. And I'm really looking forward to how doubling people's practices. If you're interested in something like that, I would say go to joinnitro.com. Nitro is the group that I work with. That's my baby. That's my family. We work really, really close together. You have to qualify. You have to apply. I only accept cool people because I only want to hang out with cool people. No, it's fun because it's like accepting clients. It's about really accepting clients that you really want to work with. Yeah. And I want to make sure I can accept clients that I can actually help. And certain people I just can't help. But there's people who are in there who are been out for like 20 plus years and they just want to upgrade and they want to just, keep up and they want to also feel like they're part of something. And that's what we do. And we travel, we go to different seminars, and we go to Bali every year. And I show you an experience with the W Hotel, and it's awesome. And it's amazing, an experience to be able to experience a 5-star hotel. It's one of the best experience hotels I have. We get the general manager to come out every year to talk, to show them how they do and run this $1 million hotel. So that's what we do. So, go to joinnitro.com, but you make sure you actually feel like you're ready for it. It's not something that's you just join in just because you want to join in. It's something that you make sure that you're qualified for.
Outstanding. And so viewers, obviously not listeners, there's actually a link below this video as we discussed. So that'll have actually a link to all of the resources that we talked about today. Dr. Tham, I got to thank you. Just amazing content, very inspirational, just like on the podcast. One of our highest downloaded episodes, by the way.
Thank you. That's cool.
Thank you so much for giving back today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for everything that you do. Thanks for doing this for doctors, because I think what you're doing is making a bigger impact for this profession. And guys, listen, viewers listening today and watching this, I thank you for being you, but I thank you for committing yourself to actually watch this video, because I know it takes a lot. I know you're all time constrained, and for you to kind of watch these videos can be tough. But I hope that I was able to share something with you, but more importantly, I want you to be able to do something. Go out and do something right now as soon as you turn on this video, and do something impactful, and let's change this profession for the better, because God, we need your help. We need you to be part of it. It's not just the top leaders that need our help, but we all got to pitch in and do the thing. And I think that if we can make an impact in our communities, guess what? Our patients are going to be the one who will stand up for us when the pressure's on, and they will protect this profession and continue to keep it alive and strong.